I was going to give you Jameer Gibbs, uh, David Montgomery, and Brandon Ayuk,
Okay,
or
valuable
Rashad.
guys.
Yep, Rashad White,
Okay.
Brian Robinson Jr., and Michael Pittman.
Okay. Okay. That was the trade offer. I liked it from my side. So I hit accept. And
Yes.
then that was that. I went about my day until just some vitriolic, just a chain of them from all the other owners. How dare you make a trade to Dutch Mook? One of those people is now joining the conversation. His name is Jon Hamm. The man
Oh, hello, boys.
most famous for
John.
kicking poor Dave Dameshek out of the fantasy football league a year and a half ago. I
I
mean, I don't want to live life in the rearview mirror. That's neither here nor there.
I don't
How
think
are
you
you,
should.
Ham?
I'm good, thank you. And I have a couple things to say about this and
Okay.
about that. I don't think it was a cavalcade of other, and I'm not sure if we're allowed to say owners at this point either. Um, but
Overseers.
members of the overseers, probably worse. Members of the fantasy league, executives, I guess maybe is the better choice.
Mm.
Um, I found it fascinating. I think the prime mover in this egregious hurt, this mystifying outsized outrage was our dear friend Mr. Simmons, who has the natural ability, like all people from Boston, to think the world is somehow aligned against them. When, if I may quote the thing I am actually most famous for, Mr. Draper, the universe is indifferent. But look, my take on all of this, again, we're talking about Mr. Mook here, who is very good fantasy football talent. The proof is in the pudding.
Okay.
He found himself through no fault of his own. As we know, there is an element of random number generation in fantasy football. Sometimes you come up against a steamroller and you could have the most points in the league and be, have a record well under 500. I think this is the situation we find ourselves in. So you have to win now. I'm in another league where I'm 2-6 as well, and going 2-7 is a much tougher hill to climb out of than 3-6, for sure. So you have to win now. So the question becomes: is there some sort of collusion, which was suggested by our esteemed man from the Northeast?
Let me interrupt, because that's exactly, vain Dave, paranoid Dave, but just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean that people
They're
aren't
not
out to get
you.
me.
Exactly.
They are. That's right. And let me tell you something. That's what I read. It was this passive aggressive, what is the Mook doing? When really it was an insinuation. Dameshek is taking advantage of the Mook. And Bill Simmons has now decided, I don't want to tell tales out of school. I sincerely wasn't going to name names, but okay, you put it out there. The idea, talk about overseer.
He deserves to be named in this. He was the prime mover.
All right, listen, but let me just say, talk about overseer. He decided we have no rule that you have to approve each other's trades, right? I mean, that's people got very upset about.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think we have had certain things in the past where there was a little bit of a hue and cry, and maybe there was an uneven thing. Am I wrong, or am I misremembering?
We voted on it. We voted on it in the league as a league like 2 years ago, whether to even have a veto rule, and it did not pass.
The darkest chapter in league history, aside from Jon Hamm, star of tag, kicking poor Dave Dameshek out of the
Once
league.
Again, I think you're confusing the phrase darkest period with funniest period. So again,
and I will say,
I don't want to tell other people what art
how to feel.
I hope you're going to say
that's the whole point of this conversation. I guess you're right. Touche.
I hope you're going to say losing the trophy, David, because I'm still hot, and that is rightfully why you were kicked to the curb.
Once again, my name should be on there too if there was one, but it's somewhere in a landfill in Agoura Hills. So,
well, we don't know. See, I guess I have a Sunday disposition than you guys do, because I'm still hoping that trophy shows up someday. I don't know where it went. Neither do you. You've just assumed the worst. Maybe it's going to reveal itself one day, and we're going to be better for it. Okay, back to what we're talking about though. So, Mook is 2-6. Now, the key detail of the players named a couple of minutes ago in this trade were, yes, the guys I got are better, but they were all on a bye in week 9. And the Mook with a 2-7 record is really that much further out of it. And if he wins and gets to 3-6, there's a reasonable shot he makes a run, right? I don't think it's
there might be a follow-up trade. There might be a thing. Exactly. You have to win. You're trading your future to win now. It happens a lot in sports.
But the insinuation is, my takeaway, well, first of all, so Simmons' plan is, or thought was, from here on out, if you're 4 games under, you're not allowed to make trades anymore. What the hell? I mean, bad trades happen, not just in fantasy football. We did. The darkest moment that I was referencing was, I don't remember the specifics, but somebody gave away basically Todd Gurley, and it was a lousy deal, and there was more, oh, this is fixed and everything else. And again, it's my sunny disposition. Maybe I'm Pollyanna. I'm willing to bet that 0% of the league members are trying to trick the rest of the league. Are trying
Absolutely, yeah, of course. There's no way. It's you're trying to make the best deal in the moment of what you think, and we all have sleepers and guys that we think are going to blow up. Who had CJ Stroud this week that started that, who knows? That's why the NFL is the NFL, and that's why we tune in every week. Todd Gurley had a spectacular year and then a spectacular flameout. It is what it is. So the other part of it that you're neglecting to mention is that the sports guy is, I think, in first place in the league. So he's feeling a little bit like, oh, well, wait a minute, someone's coming after me now. Dameshek's loading up for a run. And, again, I don't know. I'm surprised that a man who runs $100 million empire has the time to worry about things like this.
That's why it's the best.
But it is. I think it was treated with the amount of humor that it was appropriate.
No. There's an extra chapter because so the sports guy is playing overseer, a role no one asked him to play.
No one asked. Did not need.
Allowed, who rises to the level of
commissioner is not an option. I
mean, what the hell are we doing? So I send off. By the way, okay, I'm not a great guy. I think we all agree on that point, at least.
Agreed.
The Dutch Mook, though, is a sweetheart. Do we think, is the league's opinion laid out on that email chain that he's trying to screw the sports guy out of $200 in between his chemo treatments? I mean, what are we talking about? This is an insane position of cynicism to take, right?
Exactly. Well, it doesn't make.
And I'll say this: when you make the trade, by the way, like John clearly saw that how I was making the trade. My back was up against the wall. I was giving up more than I was getting. But when I made the offer, I texted you and you said yes within 45 seconds. Then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I gave up too much. If you offer a trade and someone says yes that quick,
snaps it up for sure.
Like, oh shit! Now I've really done it. But
truth serum. When I said yes, and then Simmons sends that email to the entire group, your first instinct was, well, now I'm embarrassed and we should undo this trade.
Not that we should undo this trade, but I was definitely like, I went back into a trade calculator. You have these trade calculators now, and you can enter in all the players, and then like a little meme pops up, and every single one of them is like, no, you're a freaking idiot for doing this trade. And then I was like, well, then I felt terrible. But that said, let's talk about what happened this week.
What happened?
I now have the juggernaut that is Rachaad White. I mean, next week I might be able to get Christian McCaffrey for Rachaad White. I mean, you can't stop this guy now.
Let's make a nice trade right here. What you have a representative from the MBBs on the line here. I'll sit back and let you guys do your thing. I fell to the MBBs just this weekend. He had Mahomes. I had Tua. No one did well. Our defenses did well, and now he's further ahead in our division in the fantasy, in our fantasy side of things. So muzzle tov to you, Hamm, and to Trevor Duvall, your co-owner on that.
Yeah,
I mean, make another trade. Go ahead.
Yeah, here we go. What's our I mean, we have a pretty solid team. We
Offer him.
everybody could use a
Hold
running
on.
back. I don't know. Come up with a thing, and we'll
Start with Kasperi Kapanen, Ham. That's your first volley. What is the move willing to give you?
By the way, sidebar, you're texting me about how the Pens better show up against the Sharks. If we can pivot to the NHL for a hot second.
Yes, please.
They did more than show up. A 10-2 drubbing was, I believe, the final score in the Shark Tank. My God.
Well, I don't like to, you know me again. I'm a carrot, not the whip guy. I don't want to be the latter, but I felt I had to. I had to send a very clear message to the Pittsburgh Penguins organization. Just as I love the Rolling Stones, doesn't mean I have to pretend to like their new album.
Fair enough.
I love Lemieux and Crosby and the Stanley Cups and all the entertainment and all the great years, nay, decades that they've provided for me, but I'm under no obligation to pretend I'm enjoying watching this mess. It's embarrassing for me.
Bruce Springsteen said it best. You got to prove it all night. You know what I mean? That's what it comes down to.
That's right. So I sent them a chat. I thought a pretty clear message that
message received.
Team, I'm out.
All right. NHL portion over.
But what about your Blues? You excited
about them?
The
Blues are good. They are. It's going to be an interesting year for the Blues. I think they're, new captain, Braden Shen's running the show there on the bench now. It's exciting. And we got a team full of hard workers, and that's a team that's built for the playoffs. I'll tell you that much. And a version of this team damn near knocked the Colorado Avalanche out their Stanley Cup year, and they took them to 6 games, and they could have won that series. 3 of the 6 games went to overtime, and I think Colorado won all 3 of them in overtime. So you never know. They're a good squad. They got a good goaltender, and if everybody plays up to their potential, I think that they could be a scary team come playoff time.
You're in the
3-4 seed that comes in there, and causes havoc.
Just stay out of the whales, aka the Eastern Conference.
We like the Chuck Norris division. That's our bailiwick.
All right, listen, I don't want to hold you two guys up. Your mentions to jump in and try and resolve this hash that caused me some emotional torment this weekend. Quickly, though, Ham, when you jumped in, we were just finishing up talking about Oregon. What's your sense? Sorry for your Mizzou. They took a good run at the Dogs there. I really thought, I mean, there were a lot of people picking Mizzou this weekend, at least against the number. Do you think that for the Mook's sake, his Oregon Ducks, do you think that if they win out, they're in no matter what? Or could you see if Bama plays Georgia in the SEC title game that you're going to get that SEC bias? It's going to be like, sorry, Ducks. I mean, we got to send Bama, and we're not going to not send Georgia. So those two go. And now, Ohio State and Michigan has to go. Right.
I could see it happening. And then but I would still be furious at it, like anybody would be. There's no rhyme or reason when the SEC comes into play. It's just they're the 800-pound gorilla. If there's a 700-pound gorilla, it's the Big Ten. It's a joke, And the problem is whenever any of these West Coast teams get in, they always get their kicked, which doesn't help the argument. Right. If they could come in and dominate at any point, it would be a make their argument better. But you get a Utah, you get a fill in the blank, these guys that run the table, Boise State, and then all of a sudden they go up against the 7,000-pound offensive line of Georgia or Alabama, and it's like it doesn't work. You're playing arena football against the 1975 Steelers. It's like it's not happening.
Always love those regional differences, like the big boys from the Midwest versus the speed of Florida. What's going to win out? And now you have the Pac-12 on its way out the door. It would be wildly funny if one of those teams actually won the national championship.
Listen, Oregon's a great squad. That quarterback is insane. I mean, I love watching them, but you never know. I mean, I hope they get in just because it's representative of college football, which is what it's meant to be. But who knows? I mean, it's in the order of things that are so corrupt, it's a joke. The NCAA / college football is like 1 and 1A with like FIFA at this point.
And 1B is our fantasy football league. Mook, make an offer.
I got, you know what? I'm operating on such the head of a pin right now that I have to really go dive deep to make him one of my famous terrible offers. We haven't talked about the other terrible offer that got accepted last week, but I will send
that
something
to me was the more egregious of the two, I thought. But again, it was made in the same. It was the quarterback swaps, right?
No, it was
a different league.
Oh boy.
No. What Ham's talking about is Tall John and Jamie.
Oh, got it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Traded Trevor Lawrence and got Derek Carr on the same logic you did, which is that you wanted a guy who was actually available in week 9.
Correct.
That was a bad trade. But I said something snarky. My intended target was Simmons trying to manage who's allowed to trade, not. So I said, like, hey, Jamie, you're not allowed to evaluate trades. That's for someone else to do. And Tall John thought I was taking a shot at him. So then he got mad at me and made a very off color.
It wasn't off color. But it was filthy.
I thought it was in poor taste.
Let me offer the slightest defense of Simmons here, though. That Simmons is sticking his nose in all this, and as John correctly said, guy who's running a multi-$100 million media operation is still cares enough to fire off emails and bitch about this stuff. I truly love that. You know, I have all day to cook up trades. I got, my list for today is play 9 holes of golf, walk the dog, and offer some trades. That's it for today. He's probably got to go meet he's got to go fly to go see that guy who Daniel Echo and Spotify and through countless other meetings. So I love that he has time to talk and think about our trades in our silly league. I will defend him.
Luke? What's wrong with you?
I appreciate the observation, but I also think that his time would be wisely used in a different capacity. All right,
Ham,
boys.
you use your time wisely. Promote yourself real quick. Real quick.
I can't. I'm
you're not even willing to do it. What up?
I can't do it. Solidarity.
I feel bad. You know what? I do want to say
publicly,
I was in my feelings when I said go watch him in Top Gun Part 2, because he plays a jerk in it, which makes it a documentary. I didn't mean it when I said that.
I understand it. Listen, you had a long, dark night of the soul last year, and I hope you learned your lesson.
I didn't.
Well,
but thank you anyway.
The lesson is find the trophy.